You just learned about the sections of the symphony orchestra. But let's talk about the people who actually play those instruments. How did those musicians get that job? It is worthwhile to discuss how people become professionals in this field. Classical instrumental musicians train for many years. Often they have 8 to 10 years of private lessons under their belts before they audition for a conservatory or university. If they are good enough to be accepted, they have 4 years of hard work, practicing between 3 and 6 hours a day, and then going to train in ensemble classes. When all of these people graduate, the cream of that crop auditions to perform in symphonies across the United States. If you ever see videos of symphonies from decades ago, you'll notice that there is really no diversity in those faces. This became noticed, and boards of symphonies eventually started to have musicians audition from behind a screen so that those making the selections wouldn't be swayed in their casting decisions. Then it was noticed that women weren't being selected, and they realized it was because you could hear the sound of their heels as they were walking behind the screen. So now everyone auditions behind a screen barefoot. And now you have diverse-looking orchestras. Once a musician is accepted in an orchestra, they audition for chairs within that section. The first chair in each section is the strongest musician, plays the hardest material, and is paid the highest salary. If you are fortunate enough to land an annual position in an orchestra, which are few and highly competitive, you can make a good salary. Major orchestra salaries range by the orchestra, but they range from a little over $100,000 to about $150,000 per year. The first chair of each orchestra section can make a great deal more, in some instances more than $400,000. And most major orchestras play for a season lasting only about 9 months a year. The senior member of the orchestra is the first violin, called the concertmaster, whose job it is to represent the orchestra and to be sure all the musicians are playing in tune. Often the concertmaster is also on the artistic committee to help select the music for the concerts and may frequently discuss musical interpretations with the conductor. They also determine the bowing in each piece. Do you notice how when you watch a performance, all the bows go up at the same time and down at the same time? That doesn't automatically happen with the notes that are being played. That is a conscious decision made by the concertmaster so that it doesn't look like chaos when the string sections are playing. So the concertmaster determines the bowing and teaches it to the first, second violins and the viola section. Often in the performance, the concertmaster is given a featured bow before and sometimes after the concert. Heading this group is the conductor. While the prevailing opinion is that conductors just wave their hands around to the beat of the music, they actually are the nerve center of the orchestra. Of course, the basic physical job is that one hand of the conductor is used to keep time, and this varies according to the time signature. Here's 4/4, here's 3/4, here is 2/4 or 6/8, and there are many other patterns. And trust me, when you're conducting, you can't brush something off of your nose, because a trained orchestra will follow whatever you do with your hand. If you go from 1 to 3 instead of to 2, a trained orchestra will skip the second beat and play the third. A good conductor with a good orchestra cannot mess up. With the other hand, the conductor brings in the cue saying it's time for your entry to any member of the orchestra. They know where all the cues are, or they elicit crescendos or diminuendos with that hand, while this hand is keeping the tempo. More importantly, though, a conductor develops a vision of how a piece of music should sound and then tries to transmit that vision to the orchestra. You learned in your segments on tempo markings and dynamic markings that the directions in music beyond the actual notes are, at best, very general, very vague. You'll notice some differences in how various conductors interpret their works just between the links that I post of each number in these lectures and the links that you have in your own ebook, even though I tried to find similar interpretations when I was creating the lectures. I have seen some performances of numbers in the Messiah that are actually double the length of other performances. There's a wide variety of interpretations out there, and you generally find the conductor whose interpretations you respect the most. And there are highly reputable conductors out there that people want because they respect their musical taste. In the case of an opera or a musical theater conductor, the responsibility increases because mistakes can happen on stage that require heroic, on-your-feet adaptations to the score that need to be devised immediately by the conductor and communicated quickly to the musicians so that the audience doesn't know that anything has gone wrong. Also, it is absolutely vital that the conductor get the precise tempo on the dance numbers, or the dancers will completely fall apart on stage. The base salary for Broadway conductors is $3,300 a week, or more than $171,000 a year. When looking at the list of the top 10 symphonies in the United States, we see that the conductor salaries range from more than $600,000 a year to $1.8 million a year. Of course, not all philharmonics are able to pay salaries like this, though. Only those located in large metropolitan areas. In Reno, for example, musicians are paid by the event. They are paid around $125 per performance, and the same for a rehearsal. Principal chairs are paid 120% of that. Also, those musicians with large instruments like percussionists and harpists are paid for cartage for hauling their instruments in and out. Clearly, these professional musicians don't support themselves with these performances. Often they teach at the universities or they hold other local jobs. So let's talk about singers now. They also study for a great deal of time before auditioning for a conservatory. Basically, singers all dream of having a solo featured role with an opera company. What makes this difficult, though, is that the casting of these parts is very subjective and is often affected by friendships or previous relationships, making it hard for new people to break in. If a singer is able to get a role, the opera only lasts for like 1 to 2 weekends, and then they're unemployed again. Opera soloists often talk about how uncertain their work is, or that they have to continually travel from opera company to opera company to audition for roles. They talk about never seeing their family. Some of them talk about losing custody of their children. It is definitely a hard way to make a living. Of course, the ideal financial arrangement is to land a year-round job with some security in the ensemble of an opera company, rather than shooting for solo work. At the top opera company in America, the Metropolitan Opera, the singers are paid on the average $200,000 a year. Opera stars can make $15,000 per performance. Then we're going to talk about the triple threats, those performers who need to sing, act, and dance, Broadway performers. These people go through the same rigorous vocal training with the addition of acting and dance training. Auditions are grueling. They wait in lines that wind around the block for a make or break 1-minute solo or a cattle call dance audition. Breaking into a Broadway cast is a huge accomplishment, one dreamt of by every child in America after their first youth musical. Those who make it earn a minimum of about $2,100 a week. If they are understudies, they earn considerably more. They learn their shows in marathon rehearsals that last for 12 hours a day, and they're required to be active for 10 of those hours. Then they perform in shows 8 days a week. Then they perform in shows that perform 8 times a week over 6 days. They get 1 day off. And when their show closes, they're unemployed. And occasionally we find 1 or 2 of them on Facebook asking anybody if they know any waiter gigs that are open that can hold them over until their next booking. Yes, it is immensely rewarding and very exciting, but a difficult way to make a living. And it is an occupation that you age out of. Even though I run a performing arts program, I encourage any students who have Broadway dreams to double major in college so they broaden the possibilities in their futures. Whether or not they end up on Broadway, though, learning this art is life-changing, and it benefits the artists in many intellectual, emotional, and social ways that can be integrated into other careers.